people appearing on Zoom, so we have to start on time. So let me call the committee back to order. And let me welcome Miss Sandy Morley. I don't see any miss there though. Oh, that's you? Okay. Mr. Julian Roll, Mr. Hendrik Narn, and Mr. Peter Carney. Everybody accounted for? Can you turn up the volume on the Zoom a little bit, if possible? Mr. Morley, can you turn up the volume on your system a little bit? Huh? Huh? No, but he heard him okay, but I'm not hearing him here. No, but he heard him okay, but I'm not hearing him here. We suppose we on our sound system, right? We on our sound system, right? No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. Okay. We gonna try. The problem seems to be here. We're trying to solve it. We're trying to solve it. Barney's getting him loud and clear on his laptop. Mr. Morley, can you say something now so we can see we can hear you? Say something now so we can see we can hear you. Say something now so we can see we can hear you. Say something now so we can see we can hear you. Mr. Morley, can we ask you to do another test for us, please? Mr. Morley, can we ask you to do another test for us, please? Mr. Morley, can we ask you to do another test for us, please? Mr. Morley, can we ask you to do another test for us? Can we hear from Mr. Jones or Mr. Raleigh, or see if it's Jones or in a different? See if it's Jones or in a different? See if it's Jones or in a different? With you. With you. With you. No, no, it seems to be in-house here, and it seems to be in-house here, and it seems to be in-house here, and yeah, they're speaking, but we can't hear them. 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 Maybe we'll just have to rely on you, Barney. Turn your stuff up loud. Let me see if we can all hear it. Hear you. Let me see if we can all hear it. Hear you. Something came in then, Kim. Something came in then, Kim. Something came in then, Kim.
Can you hear me, Sarge? Can you hear me, Sarge? All right. You're not hearing him inside the LA? All right. You're not hearing him inside the LA? You're hearing him in LA? You're not hearing him inside the LA? You're hearing him in LA? Oh, we're supposed to be good then. Okay. Oh, we're supposed to be good then. Are you hearing me over the speakers, right? Are you hearing me over the speakers, right? Sarge, you're hearing me over the speakers, right? Sarge, you're hearing me over the speakers, right? All right. So we're supposed to be good then. All right. So we're supposed to be good then. All right. So we're supposed to be good then.
Can we go through the routine of another mic test, please, gentlemen? Sorry for the inconvenience.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Sandy Morley.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Morley, you're okay now. Mr. Jones? Can we get?
Hi, good afternoon. Mic test, Aaron Jones here.
There you go. Good. Go ahead, Mr. Hendrick.
Hi, good afternoon. Hendrik Nan here.
Okay, you're good. Okay. Mr. Rawl?
Good afternoon.
Okay. Everybody seems to be good now. Okay. Thank you all very much. Sorry for that. Sorry for the little hiccup there, but that's the marvels of the electronics. But at least we're being able to conduct the interview and the inquiry here now. As you all are aware, we're trying to deal here in the Cayman Islands with some reports from our National Pension Office going back a couple of years. So we have some questions for the individual pension providers. And I'll let Mr. Saunders, a member of our committee, will start off. And I don't know who's going to be the spokesman on your side, or if you all want to have something to say each time, just turn your mics on.
Yeah, I think we will. As the question come about, I think we got a diverse group here, and I think we'll all be in position to respond to the questions. So we'll be speaking based on the nature of the question. We'll direct it to the person who probably be best suited on the team.
Like I said, they will answer depending on who's most suited in their team to answer the questions. Go ahead, Mr. Saunders.
Thank you very much. And just for the record, after as you officially speaking the first time, just state your name and your title for the record, so it'll be easier for us to record it. The first time any of you were speaking or responding to any question. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank the four gentlemen for joining us today on this technology. As the chairman indicated in his opening remark, the National Pensions Board have just recently released some reports going back all the way to 2008, and it was a requirement by law, and this Public Accounts Committee, by constitutional authority, as the oversight in terms of government departments, and in this situation, the National Pension Office and National Pension Board, which also serves to regulate your particular entity. So it is in that vein, and using our national pensions law, where from a public interest standpoint, and just to read the law, just so we're clear for the listening public and for everyone, it basically is that this law applies to pension plans established and maintained for the benefit of employees in the island. So lately, as a result of a recent government decision to help with the COVID-19 pandemic, the government basically allowed people early withdrawal of their pensions, and as a result, a lot of people, I guess, became a little bit surprised in terms of the value of their pensions and everything else. And so in the public interest, we're having these committee hearings today. First, I'd like to congratulate you guys for 100 years of service in the Caribbean. I understand you guys started in 1920, so this year would have been your 100-year anniversary, so well done in that regard. And understand you've been in Cayman since 2009. Okay.
That's correct. So this is Sandy Morley, Managing Director and Group COO. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, good. One of the things that we're not trying to get too much into your financial information because many of that is, in essence, confidential under the law, even though we have access to it. But what we're trying to get is a little bit of comfort level in terms of, from a governance standpoint, in terms of how things are being managed. So one of the things that jumped out for me, for example, I'm just looking at your entity here in the Cayman Islands, is that I noticed that you guys, I think I'm just trying to understand the relationship between Royal Star Assurance and BAF, because I noticed included in their financial statements, you got BAF was included in their distribution network. So I'm just trying to understand that relationship and then pretty much how everything goes from there. In essence, we're just trying to get a better understanding of what it is that BAF does, and in essence, what it is that the public can expect. So that would be my first question in terms of the relationship, or if it still exists between Royal Star and BAF. I notice on their website right now that BAF Bahamas is still included or listed on their website, but I notice BAF Cayman has not been listed since 2015. So I'm just trying to understand that relationship as to kind of what happened. Thank you.
As for their website, BAF, one of our subsidiary companies, BAF General Insurers, is an agent for and write business for Royal Star Assurance. So we have an agency agreement with Royal Star Assurance for one of our sister companies.
So are you, thank you very much. Are you guys, I'm sorry, is BAF Cayman, is it that they're selling out through BAF Bahamas? Because I noticed on the Royal Star Assurance website that in prior years and in their annual reports, they had specifically listed BAF Cayman as part of the distribution network. But I noticed in recent years, they only list BAF Bahamas. So I'm trying to understand what happened with BAF Cayman versus BAF Bahamas in this regard. Sorry if I wasn't clear before.
Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, we had a property and casualty brokerage company in Cayman, who also had a similar agency relationship with Royal Star. That brokerage, I think we terminated the license for that in 2015. So that would coincide with the time frame that you would not have seen BAF Cayman on the Royal Star website. But it was a company separate and apart from the insurance company. It was a brokerage company we had in Cayman.
Just in terms of the, we have seen the investment returns in terms of your, let's backtrack a little bit. We had asked the Auditor General to take a look at some of the underlying information that went inside the annual report that the Pensions Board produced. And we did that for all carriers. And we noticed throughout, and the analysis looked at the years 2013 to 2018, at that point. And we noticed that there were mixed results over the last 6 years worth of financial statements with regards to BAF. And we're trying to understand the investment profile in terms of what it is that the company was looking to achieve. And in essence, where did you guys feel as if though you met your investment goal or didn't meet your investment goal? I mean, what's your overall take in terms of the pension performance, at least between that period of time that we're looking at?
I think there's one key point. Prior to 2016, we inherited a guaranteed pension scheme. So there was a fixed guarantee rate on the plan when we inherited the plan in 2009. That guarantee rate, Hendrik, and you could correct me on the time, but in 2016, we moved away from the guaranteed rate and operating under the model that we're operating on under now.
Yeah, I saw that the BF guaranteed report. As a matter of fact, I think there was an article back in 2010 in the Cayman Journal where they was actually speaking about the BF guaranteed rate. I think at that time was maybe 4 or 5%, something like that. But
3%.
pardon?
Yeah, I think, it was 4, and I think by 2016 was down to 3%, yes.
Yeah, so thereabouts. So, but even during that time, we noticed that the actual performance of the fund didn't quite. Okay, well, better yet, you said you made a decision to move away from the BF guaranteed. May I ask, what was the driving force between moving away from the BF guarantee?
Well, it was to move in compliance with the pension regulations. This was done with the under directive, under guidance of the National Pension Office. So essentially, what the decision was really to move the plan in line with the existing pension regulations.
Okay, one of the in terms of you say move, and since moving it, was the results what it is you expected in terms of when you moved
I
it?
think like most of the world, I think we are well, not the market. Our investments today and the way we operate now is in line with the investment regulations of local investment regulations. They're very, very restrictive. Since that time, we've been in compliance with those regulations. Of course, we seek to strike a balance between managing our risk, managing risk of the plan members' funds, and also trying to get them the best return. Our performance has been likened to that of the market. The market does well. The plan does very, very well. If in instances where there are circumstances beyond our control regarding the market, particularly when we look at the makeup of the investment, we see that the results would obviously move in that direction.
So, just so I'm clear, you're basically saying that the investment profile is quite restrictive and it has limited the performance of your entity?
It is restrictive. It does limit the performance of the entity, yes. Restrictive and prescriptive, I must say. Yes, it does. And because of the restrictions, in a lot of instances, you don't have the latitude to be as agile or as flexible in regards to the direction you would want to go in, simply because of the restrictions as outlined in the investment guidelines.
Are you aware? I mean, we recognize that the same guidance is there pretty much for all the different pension providers, and some seems to be making it work for them. Some is able to actually work and produce, I guess, a reasonable return versus, and we're trying to understand why, if everyone pretty much is limited to the same investment profile, why is the performance between those administrators, basically the swings are quite large? Because like in some years we may say a 10% loss on one fund, but at the same time we say a 15% on the other. And we're trying to understand directly, because we do recognize it's a conservative profile, don't get us wrong, but we're trying to understand what it is that is the challenge. Now earlier, I mean, when we had the regulators inside here, the issue of the investment or the changes in investment profile came up several times. And one of the things that we need to be comfortable with is that if we do have a conservative profile now, and some pension funds are struggling, then the question is, what comfort would we have if we allow them to get more aggressive, if they're going to do any better, if they can't make it work in a conservative? So I could understand if someone is doing 4 or 5% return and saying, well, you know, guys, realistically, if you change the profile or give us a little bit more latitude, we can do 10 or 12%. But if you're doing negative returns, I mean, it's very difficult to make the case to change a conservative profile, which is normally supposed to give better returns, or at least, sorry, not better returns, consistent returns to some extent. Then the question is, why then should we be pushing for any providers to change the investment profile to be more aggressive if they are struggling under the conservative profile?
Yeah, I think the conservative approach, I think, is the correct one. I think there is the investment mix, I think, is creates some of the challenges. There is a requirement for 40 to 70% in equities. Those, of course, are most volatile. Case in point, in 2018, uh, uh, the global tank of the market caused for our plan to take a substantial hit on our return. So again, and that was primarily from the our investment portfolio. Uh, if there was a smaller footprint, of course, would have been more conservative in investments, then quite naturally the impact of that um, um, period would have been a lot less. And if you were to look at, I mean, but conversely, in 2019, the market recovered and the plan benefited from that. So I mean, if you look at the numbers between 2019 and 2018 and 2019, there is a give and take, obviously, but when the market performs well, the plan then naturally does very well.
The looking at, I mean, the overall um, fund itself. I mean, I recognize that in 2017, um, it was a fairly decent return, but then by 2018 it went down. And you're saying now it basically recovered back in 2019.
That's correct. And up until I think September of 2018, we were seeing returns of almost 10%. We actually lost all of that in November of 2018. So again, it's subject to the volatility of the market, and I think the point I attempted to make was the restrictive asset investment mix does in some instances cause for us to be subjected to a little more volatility than we'd probably like. I think that is where some of the challenges. I think the conservative approach is a good one. I think the mix is probably more of an issue as opposed to taking a more risky approach.
It is my understanding that to some extent, the type of customers you have impact the profile that you have. So if you have fairly younger customers, you have a little bit more latitude. If you have people who are closer to retirement, you have a different profile that would be required. I noticed in 2019, which is 1 year that you said recovered, that based on information that's been provided to us, that the amount of membership dropped by 13% by 512 members, but which is pretty much between 2014 and 2019 was one of the lowest years. So I'm just trying to understand if the change of the membership or the decrease in the membership, and did it take some of the profile with it that allowed you to be a little bit more risky or, not risky, a little bit more aggressive within the market?
The answer is no. We have not changed the approach. We lost two major groups during the year, but our approach and our investment approach didn't change. I think we were the beneficiaries of a very buoyant market in 2019. So we didn't change the approach at all. Yeah, go ahead. My colleague Julian will also add some commentary on that.
Chairman, in addition to the above, our investment strategy overall is to maintain a conservative approach where we are to build on all of the assets that are in place within the pension plan itself. That investment strategy really includes trying to select uh, investments that do have less volatility overall with good growth potential. So the investment strategy of the plan has always been the same. However, as you notice, not just the changes in the market, and not even just the changes uh, in our overall the makeup of the actual pension plan members. What we really do try to focus on is picking investments that are going to provide good growth with very little volatility overall, which is not always easy, but at the same time, uh, that's our strategy, and it's been a consistent strategy since we've moved over to the normal pension regulations, et cetera, in 2017 and 2016.
Thank you very much. In terms of trying to get a better understanding, and like I said, forgive us because this is the first time we're having hearings on these reports. I noticed a few years back, well, I mean, your business started out as a result of purchasing another business. So the growth was inorganic. And normally whenever you purchase another entity, you normally purchase certain challenges that comes with that entity. So I do recognize that to some extent, where I think I think you had purchased it in 2009, and by 2000, and I think was it 12 or 13, there were some issues in terms of some of the teething problems still that came out of the previous company that you had bought. How have you guys, in terms of adjusted now, since that initial hiccup that you guys had in terms of buying the company? Because I do recognize, like I said, buying entities, sometimes you buy the problems with it, and it takes a while to unwind some of those problems. So is it safe to say now that most of the teething problems you had from buying that entity, is it most of it still gone? Is it all gone? Or are you guys still going through with some of those?
I think your assessment of the initial 3 to 4 years is an accurate one. We did inherit some legacy issues from the Baco when we took over the Baco portfolio. We did have some issues, as you referenced, that we've worked through. I think post 2016, I think we're happy to say that those are behind us. We still continue to have one or two nagging issues that we're continuing to work through with the NPO. But in regards to the legacy issue and what came over with the business, I think we're happy that we've put in the time, the work, and made the necessary adjustments, and that those are behind us.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, one of the things I also want to get to from a customer standpoint or from the public standpoint is in terms of your members. Is your organization providing the statements to the employees, whether monthly, quarterly, annually, in terms of their pension performance and everything else? Is that being done? Because that's one of the challenges that we've been having, is that we found out some providers have not been literally issuing statements as required. Now,
It is. I will defer to Hendrik Nain. Hendrik Nain, just for the record, is here in the Bahamas, only because he finds himself locked out as a result of COVID. He's based in Cayman. He's in charge of risk and compliance. So Hendrik will speak more to the information to our members, annual general meetings, etc. So I'll defer to him for that, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. As Sandy mentioned, I'm VP of Risk and Compliance, resident in the Cayman Islands. With respect to annual statements to our members, we do send actually we send those out on a semi-annual basis within 3 months after the end of the second and fourth quarter. In addition to that, members are not are allowed to visit our office and sit with the pension plan administrator and request ad hoc statements periodically anytime during the year. At each year end, we do make an effort, and we have been hosting what we call the annual general meetings. Those are held within 6 months after each year end, as prescribed by the National Pension Regulations. And during those meetings, we do a full section where we would review the results of the pension plan for the prior year as well as any year-to-date performances.
When was the last annual general meeting kept? And out of curiosity, roughly how many of your members attended?
The last annual general meeting was held on the 27th of November 2019 at the Cayman Yacht Club. In addition to a lot of proxies that we had from members, I think we had about some 50 members in attendance. So in essence, we did have more than a quorum.
You had 50 members in attendance at the general meeting.
Right,
Plus a number.
plus proxies.
And what percentage is that of your total membership?
That represents about, I would say about 15% of our membership who are actually in attendance, so 15%.
What kind of presence do you maintain in Cayman other than yourself? What kind of staff and how accessible is the information that members may want? Is it just you alone, or what kind of organization do you have?
No, but basically I'm in charge of the risk and compliance department. We do have a pension department that's staffed by 2 persons. And then we have the general manager who provides oversight in the presence of Bernice West. In total, as an administrator, we have some 14 employees work on the BF Insurance Company, who is the administrator for the plan.
And the 2 employees, if I may interject, are those persons working specifically with the plan. Of course, this would not include the cashier network or financial and other substantive support that we provided around the office. Those are individuals assigned specifically to the plan, and they work under the direction of the general manager, Bernice West. Bernice is also on the call. I failed to advise of the same, but Bernice West, who is the general manager in Cayman, is also actually on the Zoom call as we speak.
Given evidence this morning by the pension administrators, the pension board, the regulators, that there are certain sections of the 2016 pensions bill that have not yet commenced. Are any of those sections hampering your operation and your ability to deliver better investments or better return to your members?
At this point, no, I would say, I'd venture to say no. We haven't seen an adverse impact. Of course, I think we're still just navigating, trying full implementation, full compliance.
Thank you. Outside of the annual general meeting, do your organization have any advisory committee made up of members that pretty much provide or lends to the governance of the overall fund itself in terms of interactions with the members? I know the law does allow for committees to be set up, or advisory committees of members. I'm just curious in terms of outside of the annual general meeting, if there's any other meeting that involve members.
No, sir. We wouldn't have any other meetings outside of the annual general meeting.
In terms of your own internal process or internal controls, just in order for us to get a better understanding of BAF itself, what governance structure does the organization have in place in terms of that monitors investments and in terms of investment returns, and whoever it is that's actually doing the investment? I mean, what's your governance structure like? What's your...
Okay, I will have Kendrick respond to the governance structure, and then Julian Roll would respond specifically as relates to our investment policy and the governance surrounding that.
Okay, in terms of a governance structure, in terms of a top-down approach, we do have a board of directors, and with BAF Insurance Company being the administrator for the plan, that board essentially has oversight of the plan. And basically that board consists of 2 independent directors in the form of the chairman as well as another director. And in addition to that, we do have what we call committees. Those committees such as an audit committee, audit and risk committee, as well as an investment committee. Those committees, as well as the board, meet on a quarterly basis. And basically, on a quarterly basis, we do table investment reports, any internal audits. We speak to external audits. So there's a whole risk management process around the plan, like I said, which covers both audit as well as the investment gamut as it relates to the pension plan.
Are the investment managers for the plan, are they in-house or is it an external company that is contracted?
Go ahead, Julian.
The Management Investment Committee is the investment manager for the plan. It does also consist of a CFA that is a consultant not only to the company but to the board of directors itself. The Management Investment Committee will make recommendations as it relates to purchases and sales and other transactions within the pension plan itself. Before we would make any adjustments or transactions within the pension plan, the Investment Management Committee would seek the approval of the Investment Committee of the Board of Directors. Once having sought their approval and received it, we would then also go to the trustees for their approval before making any additional changes or transactions within the plan itself. So there is a three-tiered process which involves not only review of investment transactions, but also includes the corporate governance structure and does a trustee sign off for any transactions completed on behalf of the members.
So we're getting feedback there a while ago. It was echoing a little bit, but just so we're clear, the investment decisions are made in-house in terms of where the monies are placed, correct?
That is correct. There's a management committee that also has a consultant CFA that makes suggestions. They're then approved by the investment management committee of the board and then approved by the trustee. So there are three levels of approvals before any additional transactions are made.
Thanks very much. In terms of that investment committee you have, are there like a set of terms of references that was set out, in essence, the risk profile, or the acceptable, almost like banks would have like an ALCO committee, asset liability committee? Is there like a set risk profile that is pretty much agreed and with certain triggers in place that if something falls outside, there is some mechanism in place to catch it?
Yes, there is. That's not embedded in our investment policy. Those triggers, those and some of the other control risk protection aspects are all built into our investment policy.
And if I may add, in addition to the investment policy, as you referenced, there's also an investment committee mandate and terms of reference that we adhere to.
In terms of looking forward, I mean, ultimately, what is it that you guys see as needs to be done in terms of law or regulations, or that you think can allow BAF pension to become, I guess, to the point where they exceed expectation in terms of returns and everything else?
You want to take the first step of that, Julie?
We believe that the regulations are actually fairly comprehensive. While we do or may have some small concerns about the asset mix and whether or not it's conducive to ensuring that there are consistent positive returns in the pension portfolios, we believe that the regulations overall do make sense. They are conservative enough in the case of most of the investment requirements, but in some cases the mix that is required in order to make the investment portfolios stay in line with the regulations could be a little bit onerous. From what we were hearing and the things that we saw in the discussions this morning, also other discussions and considerations from the regulators throughout the beginning of this year related to COVID. We do not believe any of the regulations and changes so far seem to have been unreasonable in any way on our end. We do believe that continued review, analysis, and us being active as an investment manager and administrator will prove positive in the future. So we're not looking for any significant change at this time.
I think though, if I just may add to it, if there's one suggestion or consideration, I think that there would be to allow for the investment mix to be to respond a lot quicker to market conditions and allow for short-term short-term exceptions, particularly during periods when we know for a fact that the global markets are more inclined to have a lot of volatility, i.e., similar to what we saw at the end of 2018.
Well, I think one of the things that we recognize here this morning, even based on testimony from some of the regulators, that as we start getting to more the complex side of the investment, I think we need to develop some level of comfort with regards to the expertise. And well, let me backtrack a little bit. We need to develop some level of comfort with regards to the regulators in terms of looking at investment funds, because what we have found now with the merger of two departments, sorry, is that there seems to be a mismatch in terms of the skill levels available within the Department of Labor and Pension versus what it is required to manage or properly regulate the actual funds that we're looking at. So a case in point we use was SEMA. I mean, you look at the Class A banks, I think their assets is anywhere from 10 to $15 billion. We look at the pension, we're looking at $2 billion. Then the question comes up now, what competencies are required inside the Department of Labor Pensions to properly regulate these entities as they get into more complex type of investments. So I think that is one of the issues that we need to look at. But then at the same time also, we need to look at our own supervision in terms of what it is that we would expect to make sure that we have the proper systems and processes in place to safeguard the public money, because ultimately that is our task here, is to make sure that the employees who have money in the pensions are actually getting value for money to some extent in terms of a reasonable rate of return. Because we have seen statements where people have less money in their pensions pretty much from the amount that they have contributed. Now, granted, different people come in at different time of the pension. Some people would have taken a bigger hit during the 2008 financial crisis. Some may have taken a bigger hit during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think from that standpoint, one of the things that I would really like to see more is that the regulators or the Department of DLP at least to some extent agree a risk profile that give companies some level of flexibility, as you say, to respond to certain market conditions. So speed to market has always been something that has to be there. So we get that. But at the same time, we also need to recognize that we need to make sure that people aren't gambling with people's money. And I think that is where the balance comes in between risk versus reward. So I think that is one of the conversations that probably won't be had for the rest of this year to some extent, but it's definitely something that's going to be out to the future. But one of the things I want to ask relates to the withdrawals in terms of your membership. How many members thus far, it doesn't be exact, but ballparkish, that have applied to withdraw funds from the pension? And the reason why I ask that is that if there's a situation where you can't respond to market quick enough based on how the profile is set up, then it begs the question, in this situation now where you have 45 days in which to, I guess, withdraw money to give your customers, what impact then would that, not having been that agile enough, what impact would that have on people looking to withdraw funds from BAF then? So that's a little bit curious about now.
If I may, I think to date, we've received just over 1,000 applications, of which we have already approved some 757,000, sorry, 757 for withdrawal payments to be made, which equates just over $4 million in withdrawal payments.
No, in term, I know that the law had set a set time in which, from once you approve them, in which to make the payout. But, sorry, but going back to your earlier statement where you were saying that the way in which you invest, it doesn't allow you to respond to market quickly. So the grand question in all of this is, with those early withdrawals coming in, which wasn't pretty anticipated when you would have made investments initially, what kind of penalty hit or what is the impact to customers in terms of exiting before time in terms of those investments? I mean, what so far have you seen? Is there a situation where they're losing 10 cents or they're gaining 10 cents, or we're just trying to figure it out? Bearing in mind that when we look at what happened in 2018 in terms of the performance, is it enough, or was there enough recovery in 2019 that would have negated the hit that happened in 2018 in terms of what it is that they can expect?
Okay, let me to answer the question. I guess I'll answer it first. To answer your last question first, the market recovered sufficiently in 2019 to offset, so we were able to sufficiently recover, and generate returns from our 2018 numbers. In regards to the impact as a result of the withdrawal exercise that's ongoing, once we got it came to the public domain and the discussions were being had, we started to run the numbers, looking at some of the what it would look like potentially based on the model or the program that was rolled out. And I think we've been able to sufficiently respond to that and minimize the impact or the cost of doing so to our plan members. We have been very selective in terms of which investments we liquidate. Clearly, we'd have done that with the view of the investments that were coming due in the event of bonds or fixed return investments, and those equities again that had greater volatility and would have been the most likely ones to liquidate in the first instance.
Thanks very much. Now, thanks for the answer that you gave, because I recognize now when you said the 4 million or thereabouts that would have been withdrawn from your fund. I am curious now in terms of the remaining funds that are left behind and looking at the administrative costs that your organization has. Automatically, the cost to ratio in terms of funds under assets under management, and then your fixed costs is going to actually, on a per individual member, increase significantly. So the question in all of this is, from a cost standpoint now for BAF, are there any planned reductions in costs, or how is it that you're going to reduce costs? Because if the assets under management is going down, it means that your fee income that you would have made, investment fee income, would have gone down. But then recognizing that you do have a certain amount of fixed costs, then the question is, what steps are going to be taken now to offset or to mitigate the impact of the overall fund now in terms of revenues are definitely going to be down, but your fixed costs will be remain the same. Are there any intention of changing your fixed costs or anything like that?
This is Julian Roll. The majority of our costs are actually member-based for the administration of the plan itself. We don't have significant amounts of fixed costs within the actual pension plan. We've been lucky in this regard, in so much as the administrator does have a very robust back network and infrastructure, so that we are able to keep our fixed costs within the pension plan and ultimately to the pensioners very low. The majority of it's going to be percentage based. We do have a fairly low administrative fee, The only time the administrator and the investment manager really do benefit is when the plan does exceptionally well.
Now, well, I was just looking at the 2018 your last 2018 financial statements because we haven't seen anything yet for 2019. But just looking at your 2018 financial statements and looking at what happened in 2018 and then looking at the fee costs, especially admin costs, I realize, I mean, are you saying then in a sense your admin cost is more variable as opposed to fixed? Is the large percentage of it variable costs?
The majority of our costs are variable, not fixed.
Okay, thanks very much.
Mr. Morley, we want to thank you and your team, sir, for making yourselves available to the committee. And we thank you for your answers and participating in this inquiry. Thank you very much and have a great
Mr. Milton,
evening.
thank you for having us. It was indeed a pleasure.
Okay. That brings us to the close of this evening proceedings. So the meeting is adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And when we start with British Cayman Colonial Pension Plan between 9 and 10:30. And then we have, so see you all tomorrow morning. Have a great evening. Thank you. And thanks, Mr. Kim, for getting things sorted out for us.